changed my life in a good way. With that day that we had together, it was really great, very memorable. A lot of dreams and things I always wanted to taste. You made it come true for me. So
Thank you.
First of all,
Very kind of you.
So you were telling me one of your favorite cocktails was the Mai Tai, the original Mai Tai. You told me a lot of great stories about Trader Vic's and the little side shot you got and everything about that. So been working trying to replicate the original Mai Tai. So we sourced out with Mr. Beachbum Berry. We got his orgeat from Latitude 29. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we got a molasses-based Martinique rum. I think it's 1960-ish. So we put together a Mai Tai we'll do as many as we can. We would have had them ready, but you know the weather kind of would dilute them a little bit if they were sitting outside. we tried our hardest, so we're mixing them together right now. We put together a really beautiful Mai Tai for you, and I hope you enjoy it. Thank you for everything.
I would like just to say, since I've got the floor, I want to thank and call attention to the encouragement and counsel I've had almost from day one from Jeff Berry, who everybody knows as Beachbum Berry. And his wife, Annie, who's probably back there someplace. Because she's the inspiration for the Tiki bar that's been wildly successful that they both jointly operate. And fortunately, she runs the business. They both work as a well-oiled machine. Now, I was placed in contact with Jeff Berry a long time ago. When we communicated with one another, we used snail mail. There were no computers back in those days and no email. And a joint friend who's an author of drink books, his name is Ted Haig, or Dr. Cocktail. I made his acquaintance at well, actually, I think it was at a very early drinks conference of some sort that was held here. And I was talking to him about my rum collection. And he mentioned, he said, I know a guy out in Southern California who is hell-bent for leather to trace down the original rum drink recipes that were developed by Don the Beachcomber way back in 1934. So Ted gave me the Beachbum's address. I wrote him a letter, put a stamp on it, and mailed it to him. And about 2 weeks later, I get a response the same way. And he reported on his progress tracking down the bartenders, because Don the Beachcomber never published a single drink recipe out of, I don't know, probably 150 that are identified in his early restaurant menus. But the Beachbum, because most of the retired bartenders, Don the Beachcomber chain just sort of wrapped up and vanished sometime in the like 1977 or something like that. I'm sure you know it by heart. So these fellas all lost their jobs, and they hung around working bars. The Tiki craze was national at that point. So they had, and since they knew the Don the Beachcomber recipes, they were in high demand. So none of them had trouble finding work. They were reluctant to disclose their secrets, but the Beachbum won their trust over the years. But when
it's called over tipping.
Yeah, I guess so. It was worth it. And so he would write to me when he had decoded one of the Beachcomber's recipes. His source material were little, spiral notebooks that would fit in a shirt pocket, and the men who made the drinks used these as crib notes. They really didn't carry the recipes, which were entirely different for 150 different drinks, and they would refer to them as need be when they were producing somebody's order. But Don the Beachcomber, in his zeal for keeping his recipes a strict secret, made up combinations of syrups and other flavorings, for instance, and he would himself fill empty liquor bottles, cleaned and dried, and he would put a label on that might have said Don Spices number 3. And the bartenders, although they knew the restaurant's recipe that called for that particular item, they didn't know what was in it. The Beachcomber's genius was he was a dogged investigator, and through very, very intense investigation, he would get one lead from one old retired bartender. For instance, in the case I'm thinking of, was occasionally sent out from the restaurant to somewhere in the Los Angeles suburbs with a bunch of washed, empty bottles, that had held, say, a 2 or 3 month supply of Don Spices number 3, and this fellow would remember that it was, in this case, I think it was a cinnamon syrup.
We like it. No, you don't understand. Like, this is gold to people.
My public.
This is gold.
So the notebook that they would let Beachbum copy, it would ultimately get down somewhere to the end of this list of ingredients to a phrase like Jamaican gold rum. And the Beachbum knew that I was into rum collecting and knew a good deal about rums that were being used and shipped into the United States upon the lifting of Prohibition. And then I would go to work with an archive I've developed of price lists for liquor stores, wholesalers, and the like, and I would formulate an opinion as to what it tasted like or what rum it would be. So we had a symbiotic relationship.
It was a little bit more freighted towards you, I think. Steve was like a living Rolodex of extinct rum names. I'd come across a recipe for rum, gum, and lime, and it would say 1.5 ounces Infierno. And I'd be like, what the fuck is Infierno? I'd write a letter to Steve, and I'd look at the post box every day for the return, and he was like, oh, that's a 15-year Cuban rum. And there was a cocktail called the Golden Stag, and it's called for like an ounce of Golden Stag. And goes, what's Golden Stag? And he goes, oh, that's a gold Jamaican rum. They stopped making that in 1938, whatever. So because of Stephen, I was able to make these drinks, basically. I mean, yeah, I found out what was in the syrups and all that, but that doesn't matter. Without the right rums, Don the Beachcomber, as Stephen was saying, was very, very, very precise about his rums, about the blending of them, the different flavors, different densities. And Stephen could parse from bartenders' crib notes in these little books. Oh, I know what that is. Yeah, that's a 91 point. That's Hudson's Bay. I know it. And it really saved me about 100 years of archival work and probably a lot of travel to various, I probably would have had to go to, yeah. Yeah. Right. So Steve was like this living encyclopedia of extinct rums, and it really was an awesome thing to be able to use him to get these things together, just the same way that Alexander and Plantation are using him to recreate an extinct rum. You know, so it's like we're all using you, Steve. I'm sorry. Sorry. I hope you're getting something out of it. You know, but,